All right. Welcome back and good evening, everybody. Sorry for the short delay to get started. Hope a few of you are kind of jumping on the channel now to get an opportunity to watch this. I know from this web application I'm using, I can't see exactly how many people are watching because it doesn't go directly to YouTube in that way, but I think we'll be just fine as we kind of go through this. So wanted to welcome two new people to the live stream tonight. We have Vintage Cards Steve and we have Doug from dkahn's Cardboard. Welcome you both for jumping on and joining me this evening. I really appreciate it. So we have an opportunity to kind of talk about a season that I think was pretty important for a lot of people, but especially for me too, the 2001 baseball season and the set that accompanied it. But I wanted to just kind of give you both an opportunity to kind of introduce yourself and just talk a little bit about your channel if there's people watching that have not met either of you.
Sounds good. So I'll start, and I'll say that this is kind of a confluence of things for me because I started my channel documenting my daughter's life. So she's 17, so that started 17 years ago. During COVID, I became a pack opening channel, baseball card. Steve is the only one in the community that is still in the community, Vintage Card Steve, who was following my channel, and he encouraged me to show my vintage stuff. And Steve is the reason why I started doing content creation for vintage stuff. So I really wouldn't have done it. I wasn't even thinking about it. So Steve, so my journey basically, this is now I hand it off to the man, the myth, the legend, Vintage Card Steve.
That's an awesome introduction.
Steve. I don't know, I've been going about YouTube for a really long time. I remember when like Pacino Man and Mike O, they first started their channels, and I just kind of always watched everything. And one day I decided, hey, let's share the collection, and there we are.
It's very cool you both know each other. I actually did not know that when I set this thing up, but I was very pleased to see that, but didn't know the level that you both know each other until just now. That's great. Okay, so typically what I do on these, at least up to this point for the third show we have here, is talk about why this set is great, but I really think you have a hard time being able to tease out the set from the 2001 baseball season and the year itself, unlike probably any other year and set for the more modern age, in my opinion. And that's just kind of something where I thought this would be an interesting topic to talk about, and just like also what that set meant for Topps itself as it began to really usher in a new era of how they really marketed their flagship set. But before we kind of even go there, just wanted to kind of, before we kind of talk about the set itself, just wanted to kind of get your memories as you kind of look back and like, what do you remember about the 2001 baseball season? What was kind of your takeaway from that season and the memories of it? Steve, I want to start with you.
Oh man. So 2001 baseball season, I was graduating high school, so I was watching baseball quite a bit. And it was a long time ago. When you're just graduating high school, you got so many other things going on. I remember the talks of like Pujols and Ichiro coming up, and that was a big thing. And as far as the set goes, for me, it's like, I think 2001 Topps is one of the best looking sets of the early 2000s. That's my opinion. I think it's just a clean, basic design, but I think there's a lot of nostalgia there. You got obviously the Pujols and the Ichiro rookie cards. Another guy that I think it's actually his first Topps card, and I don't know if you guys know, I'm a closet fan of like semi-stars, superstars that nobody ever talks about anymore. Grady Sizemore rookie card, I think, is actually in that 2001 Topps set as well.
He does have a card in that set. Yep.
Yeah, I know he's got some moments before that, but I think that's his first Topps card. I'm not 100% sure. So yeah, love Grady Sizemore as well. He's got doesn't really get talked about anymore. Overall, just a fan of 2001 pop set. So yeah, got quite a bit of them.
And Doug, what are your memories? Same
Yeah,
question.
for me, I wasn't necessarily, well, I was following postseason baseball mostly, and I think that I feel like I'm a Mets fan, but I think like and I'm not and I'm from the New York area, but I'm not like a wear your New York pride on your shoulder kind of guy necessarily. But I do feel like everybody was kind of united around the trauma that New York had just faced. And I feel like everybody, like the evil empire that people feel like the Yankees are. And I'm not even particularly a Yankees fan, but I do feel like the country was kind of just purely united. I felt like around rooting for a city that had just taken a blow. So I mean, I feel like that's what resonates to me the most. And then having gotten into cards again, I was into cards before that, and then again after that. Looking back at the 2001 set, it is one of my favorite older sets of the last 20 years. And Mitchell, I know of the gold. I love the gold too. I don't have any gold. I've seen the Pool Hotel card is a mystic. That's just a card that has two guys, those two amazing rookies card. And I do have, probably shouldn't, I won't, I have a 2000 card, but no. I guess I'll let give pass it.
Okay. I know, Doug, I was having a little hard time hearing you a little bit. It was kind of breaking up a little bit. Just I don't know if it was on my end or your end, but I just wanted to kind of bring that to your awareness a little bit. But kind of what most of you said.
Yeah. Towards the end, yeah.
Yeah, just me thinking back to 2001, just kind of reminds me of like where I was at in my life. I was just kind of moving into adulthood. At that point, I had graduated college, and I was out of college for a year and started moving on to graduate school. In fact, my very first day of graduate school was 9/11, and let's just say the classes never happened because they canceled them because I had classes in the afternoon that day. So my first day of school wasn't until like I think like 4 days later or something like that. And except for the people in Phoenix, everybody was a Yankee fan that fall. I felt probably even the people in Phoenix probably wouldn't have been terribly upset if the Yankees had kind of pulled that off. And I don't think I'd ever really like experienced it before, where like the whole nation kind of got behind a team like that. And that was with like some like teams that were like had some major accomplishments that year, like up in obviously the Pacific Northwest. Seattle won 116 games that season. And they were kind of cooking, and they had the brightest and hottest star on their team that year. And then the Yankees just said, no, this is our year. This is meant to be. And I think we all probably felt that, except for the Arizona Diamondbacks going into those games 6 and 7 in Phoenix. And I still was kind of shocked that it actually happened, that they actually got beat. And I think we can remember that they've won 4 out of 5 World Series, and something that's not been touched since. So that was really an incredible accomplishment, and because we haven't seen it since, I guess I was taking that for granted, to kind of just how great that team was at that moment, even though I did like a lot of their players. I always hated that they beat my White Sox, as they always did. But yeah, it was also kind of the end of the era, for that team too, because that same team did not win a World Series again. Some of those players did later on, but it was a very new version of the Yankees by the time they won another World Series later on in that decade. those are some of the things that kind of stand out to me. Getting back to Topps, so it's hard to talk about that set without really kind of thinking just how dead the Flagship brand had become. You kind of think about after the strike, after the big card boom bubble burst, the Flagship set, the Topps was really trying to find ways to bring interest to that set, because there were a lot of the interest were going to the other brands and also to their premium brands that they were starting to produce. Yet it was still like their most populous brand that they were trying to be able to push on collectors, but they had really scaled back production by 95, 96, 97, 99, and 2000. Those sets are extraordinarily small. And some of the sets actually have like really low print runs, but like people weren't really gravitating towards them because there wasn't really something that people were interested in other than maybe the chance to get an autograph out of some of them. Well, in 2001, it was an anniversary year and they really wanted to change that image completely. So just want to kind of show a basic card from the set so people have an idea of what it kind of looks like if you've never really seen a 2001 Topps card. I think this is probably maybe the most famous card from the base set, if you exclude the traded series, is the Ichiro card, which was the real chase card of that summer until the update series came out, which had also Albert Pujols in it. And talking about Ichiro, like I remember like some of the things that were being said about him that kind of bordered on being a little stereotypic, if you will, kind of saying that, that swing will never work. Japanese hitter's never been successful in the major leagues, and just kind of really shooting him down and really kind of taking shots at him, even though he had never even played a game. And then he went on to win the batting title. What was the American League Rookie of the Year and MVP? That was the first time that had been done since the 70s, and only the second time ever at that point. So, like, it was quite a remarkable accomplishment by Ichiro. But here's the basic card design. So you got green cardstock with gold foil on here to have the name, little rookie card thing at the bottom here. And then you have the 50th anniversary emblem up here, which is kind of the big thing they added on the cards right there. This gold foil is extraordinarily delicate if you've ever touched one of these cards, and they're very subject to getting indented very easily and chipped, which really does make kind of getting higher grades of some of these cards a little bit more difficult. So that was the basic set design, and then they just loaded the things with like all-time great Hall of Fame autographs in there, which are still chase cards, but you get like Hank Aaron, Willie Mays, like all the big names that were still alive at that time had signed autographs in there in addition to like the prospects and stuff. And they became like really chase cards. But the thing that really was the innovation in that set was those gold cards. And I don't know if you guys ever had an opportunity to open packs back then, to kind of remember pulling those cards or not, or if that's just my memory, but it was really cool when you got the retail box and, you get one of those cards and it was like 1 in 17, for retail and for hobby, which are like odds that you just don't see anymore, where it's the same in retail and in hobby to be able to pull that card. But it was a parallel for every single card in the set. And it was over 700 cards. It was a 791 set when you put series 1 and 2 together, which was cool. You get like a parallel of every single one of your players that you're a fan of, which they had never really done that to that extent with the base set, at least not serial numbered the cards, because they did have gold cards in 92, 3, and 4. So that was really an interesting innovation, and obviously there's been a legacy of it thereafter. So I don't know if it might be interesting kind of just like kind of pull some of the gold card now and kind of show them off as we kind of talk a little bit about some of the players that were on there. Like the very first card in there is the last card of Cal Ripken.
Cool.
And I remember going to see his last game in Chicago because he'd already announced his retirement in like July or something like that. And so it was kind of a cool memory. He was my favorite player as a kid. But I'll pull one that doesn't have the cellophane on it, so it's a little bit easier to see it. So you can see these, it's just gold foiling all around the card. So the cardstock is completely gold foiled. And there often were miscut. Sometimes you'd get like extra edges on the cards because they didn't fully cut them, which really kind of brought some scarcity to these cards. Have either of you ever had a chance to look at like some of the pop reports on these?
Can you hear me now?
Hear you just fine. Yeah.
Okay, I put in earbuds. No, I haven't for those. I can, I mean, we know what the print run was, but no, I haven't. So you could probably enlighten us.
But because of how delicate these cards are, it's really uncommon to find one that's higher than a 9. Yeah, I think there's very few PSA 10s. I didn't look BGS to see. I don't think they have pop reports or not. I'm not sure if they do. To see what they had for like 10s, but SGC I think only has like 1 or 2. So it's, if you get something that's even a 9 on there, and I don't even think I even have a 9 any of the cards that I have that are graded, that's actually a pretty scarce card and a pretty high condition card on there because they're so subject to being chipped. And
Wow.
if you've opened up these boxes in the last like 5 years or so, they're all stuck together. They got the bricking. So then
Wow.
you rip apart the cards and they're just ruined. They won't grade at anything you want to be able to see. So I think that kind of, for me, is like kind of makes it kind of interesting to be able to try and capture these cards. And it was the only time they used a card stock like this because they changed it the very next year to a much more durable card stock.
Yeah, so I didn't pay attention to the cards until 2018, 2019. So I kind of looking back, but I've always thought that the 2001 gold card was the nicest looking of all the gold cards because of the way it's has that frame with the green. It's just something about it just looks so much nicer. And I'll like maybe compare it to like, this was maybe like let's say this might have been the first one I ever pulled. So this is 2019 gold.
Pete Alonso.
And this I shouldn't say this wouldn't be the first one I pulled. This was the first one I pulled that I cared about, or that I really cared about, that made an impression on me. And while this looks cool, I think this looks really cool. It doesn't look anywhere as cool as that card. And I have some other years. This is a pretty cool. This one is pretty cool also. This is 2015. This is of course a Wilmer Flores rookie card. Not a lot of people don't know who he is. Steve, I don't know. Is this guy on your radar, Wilmer?
Yeah, I do. I put him in binders.
Oh, okay, yeah. He's a Mets favorite because he thought he was traded, and he actually he was shortstop and he was out on the field and he was tearing up because on the field because he thought he was traded, but it turned out that the trade fell through and he was on the team for another 2 years. So he got a lot of love after that. But yeah, so yeah, I have a lot of love for the 2001 gold cards, but I don't have one yet. It's on my list.
So I think people are so accustomed to pulling all these different parallels and sets now, right? Because I don't even know how many different variations they have of the base card anymore now with like regular tops, their flagship series. But for 2001 and 2, it's just the gold parallels. That's all there is. And the gold parallel has been the one that's kind of lasted through, the last, 22, 23 years of the product, which definitely kind of makes it unique if you're really trying to think about player collecting of some of those players that have been in the league since that time, or just trying to get their rookie cards. You can kind of get a parallel that's reasonable because there are always going to be over 2,000 of these based on what year it is. And you can kind of keep it consistent to like, okay, there's one parallel. At least that's something that's kind of always been kind of interesting and attractive to me to be able to kind of go in that direction with it.
Yeah, it has a legacy. More than I get. I mean, is there any parallel that has a legacy like that, except for maybe the refractor?
Refractor might go back farther. Yeah.
Yeah, refractor goes back to 93. Yeah. But yeah, that's awesome.
So it's not top, but I remember the early '90s. I think there was gold border Bowman cards. Those I
Oh,
thought were,
interesting.
the real deal back in the day.
And
Oh
was that
yeah,
a
I think there was foil cards in
But I
'92,
think
right?
that, yeah,
There was
2001 had
foil
to be
cards in the back of the set.
okay?
Mhm.
Was that a variation, or is that the
90.
design of the set?
I
Can't
think that
remember.
was
I
just
think it
the
may have
design
been a
of the set. It
variation.
wasn't like a parallel.
Oh, was it?
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I just remember seeing those. Back in the early '90s, I thought they were the coolest thing ever.
So 2001 had some retirements.
Sorry,
And I'm sorry, go ahead, Steve. Yeah.
I'm reading the chat. We got Scott Maz in here. Ken,
Yeah.
God is great.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, 2001 obviously had some retirements from some really big
So,
Hall of
if I'm not looking
Famers
at the camera,
in there. We had obviously Ripken, but we also had Tony Gwynn, and certainly if you guys want, I can just start pulling some of the guys as we kind of go
Yeah,
through the
sure.
cards. Yeah, Tony Gwynn was like the other big one there. If you remember, both of them were into 2001 All-Star game. Gwynn more as like an honorary, I think, addition to the team because he was actually hurt and wasn't able to play, but Ripken was voted in. And if you kind of remember, Ripken was originally scheduled to play third base. And if you remember, Alex Rodriguez took third base and kicked Ripken over to shortstop as kind of like paying homage to his favorite ball player growing up and having him play shortstop to start the game, which was like a memory I kind of had of that All-Star game when actually was in Seattle, just like this season that we had just last week. And Ripken homered in the game. So I tried to look up to see like how many players homered in their very last All-Star game, but I couldn't like find it out. I know, like I think maybe Williams did it, but I think there's
Yeah, I'm
probably gotta be a
thinking
few
Ted.
others
I'm
that did
thinking
it. So
Williams did, right? The most remarkable and Ted Williams' career was a star. He was never in the postseason. But yeah, I think Williams.
kind of, I have like a lot of the. I think I have all the Hall of Famers now except for Chipper Jones, only because it didn't come in the mail today. So otherwise, I would have had that to show off. But I could just start kind of pulling off here. So like Vladimir Guerrero, I think a highly underrated Hall of Famer during his era. So I have a graded card of his in there. Some of the guys that were young that kind of started showing up in that set. We have like Adam Wainwright was drafted the year before.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
And it was with the Braves, even though he didn't make a major league debut until he played with the Cardinals a couple of years later. But bring Steve back in here. But so he was in there as a rookie. Other rookies, Edwin and Carcion was a rookie in that set too, of another player that did pretty well. Jake Peavy was a rookie in there. Royce Oswalt was a rookie in that set. Jose Reyes, Justin Morneau was also another one that was rookies in the set. And those were kind of the big ones that other than the two that we all know. And speaking of that, you guys have any of the Pujols cards? Okay. Or the Ichiro cards? You just showed the Ichiro.
So this is the one card I have to show from which is the one I'm happy with. I definitely want a couple of others. This is the Topps Chrome version. And I think there are two Topps Chromes version. This one says rookie card late edition.
And I think there's the refractor, and then there's that gold refractor, which is super scarce and super expensive to be able to pick that one up. And then obviously he did have a gold card too.
That's awesome.
There, so that was an addition earlier this year that I was pretty happy to be able to pick up. And I'm sorry about the glare. I'm not sure I'm getting such a glare on there today.
That's a great card.
And that one, and then obviously Ichiro was the other one that we had there.
That's so cool. Yeah, that's awesome.
I think most people go after the dual card of those two guys from Topps Traded. And it was definitely produced during their rookie season, but it's not their rookie card, if you will. So it's kind of funny how it's kind of shifted, where it's kind of like it seems to people have adopted it to be the rookie card of those two guys in this set. I've noticed that kind of being a trend over the last couple of years in the hobby, and that card's been like a super hot card for people to acquire. Is getting that dual rookie of them. So it's like the last big one I need.
In the chat, Rabbi Kalani says, "Where's your 2001 Golden Mark race?"
Yeah, Robbie's my best friend and also my troll. So I will show him a Mark Grace card when I get to the Mark Grace. So how about that? So let's start, maybe continue on with like King Griffey Jr. This is a more recent one picking up. And I love it. I love this card. So it kind of has this full swing on there. I think some people might be critical that he's wearing the wrong uniform, but I'll show you truly the wrong uniform for King Griffey Jr. a little bit later as we kind of talk about the legacy of the gold cards. Greg Maddux in there. Here's
I
a
think
Cubs card
Vintage
for
Card
you,
Steve
Robbie.
would probably say Greg Maddux is wearing the wrong uniform, right?
Probably.
Oh yeah,
He probably wants him in a Padres uniform, right? You want him with the
Cubs.
Padres or Dodgers?
Yeah, exactly.
There's Sammy Sosa, future Hall of Famer in my opinion. CC Sabathia.
Nice.
And then we got Ricky Henderson as a Padre, who played for everybody. So like hard to say what uniform he really belongs in because he played everywhere. Probably still the A's. But...
Oakland or Yankees, right? One of the two. Probably.
I don't know. He won Toronto too. So like
yeah.
I don't know. I don't know which one like people would kind of think he might be on there. So yeah. Then I just have like a bunch of like the singles and stuff like that. So I'll kind of pull out the ones that are kind of like of interest as we kind of go through there. You know, like there was actually a third Hall of Famer that retired that year. So this is my first trivia question for the night. Do you know anyone know who that is? Anyone on this watching live or either of you?
No, I don't think I do. I don't think I do. It's not coming to me.
Harold.
Nice.
That's the chant we did here in Chicago for him whenever he come to bat. So Harold Baines played his last season in 2001 for the White Sox. Also, McGuire stepped down after that season, as well as Jose Canseco, which I think is kind of interesting. Like, I think you probably want to touch a little bit on like what happened after 2001. Like the whole facade of these great home run hitters and these achievements by these power pitchers began to be called into question. Yeah. Because in 2002, a former MVP who had just retired as well in 2001 did an article of Sports Illustrated and admitted to using steroids during his MVP season, which was Ken Caminetti. You guys remember reading that article?
No, I didn't read it.
Yeah. But like that was kind of like obviously a big jolt, I think, at that point. And Canseco shortly thereafter was pretty much said, like, hey, I'm being blackballed. You know, like nobody's picking me up because they don't want to deal with me for one reason or another. And he's like, you know what? I'm going to write a book about my time in baseball and talk about my steroid use and the steroid use of everybody. So then I put everybody on edge in baseball, waiting for that book to come out. So then people really started to dig deep and like who's using at that point, which was kind of funny, you know, as I get to like his card. But you remember the big accomplishment of 2001, the big individual accomplishment? It's still the record today. One I think a lot of us like just kind of wish didn't happen.
Was it Bonds home run?
Barry Bonds hit 73 home runs that season. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I was suckered into that. I got into all the hype. I remember, you know, like that was the kind of article. It was like after we had to put the season on pause for a week, it was like, you know, is this going to hurt his chances, you know, in trying to be able to kind of keep his momentum going to break the home run record set by McGuire 3 years earlier? And he just blew past it at that point. And no one's touched it ever since.
Right.
Okay, Robbie's got a joke there. So I don't know if you guys have ever seen that. It's a comedy, but it's pretty funny.
It's not about Canseco and McGuire.
It is about Kasego and McGuire, but it's not what you think it might be. Yeah, it's done by Adam Sandberg.
Okay.
And some of his crew. Yeah. An interesting fact about this 2001 set is this was the first, actually not the first, but it was the continuation of Topps, not including card number 7. Do you guys recall that? Like why they dropped card number 7 and what that significance of that was?
No.
That's because you're a Mets fan, not a Yankees fan. So they dropped card number 7, sort of paying homage to the life and career of Mickey Mantle after he passed. And they also didn't have rights at that point. I think Upper Deck had exclusive rights to his estate to be able to produce Mickey Mantle things. So they left him out of the set until they brought him back in 2006. And then they produced the cards that were missing as part of like a series they did in 2006. And they had one that matched the base set, but then they also produced a gold version of it. So this is the gold version that would be going with the 2001, if you will.
Nice.
But it's a completely different card stock.
Gotcha.
And the numbering is different. It's out of like 577, but it's a pretty affordable card. It's kind of a cool.
That's cool.
Part of it, addition to it. So
it's like the card that never was, but only that. That makes any sense. Might have just, yeah.
Also kind of interesting is like between series 1 and 2, they updated some of the players that have been traded in the offseason. So Mike Mussina, obviously had just finished pitching with the Baltimore Orioles, but he signed in the offseason that year with the New York Yankees. So he's got a Yankee card later in the set. His first season with the Yankees. So. Here's like the latest one I got, came just the other day, was McGuire.
Cool.
There's tons of fans of McGuire, man. Like it was
that was a gold. Those are all gold.
They're all gold. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yep. All right. So we talked about Barry Bonds, and I'll pull out his card in a minute. So obviously he led the league with 73 home runs, all of baseball, definitely the National League for sure. Sosa was second, and I think he still hit over 60 that year. That's when he was like on that streak of like 3 consecutive years, I think, of hitting over 60 home runs, which is crazy when you kind of think about that in today's baseball. Do you remember who led the American League in home runs that year? Anybody in the chat? You guys? Think about that. I'll show you Pedro Martinez.
Yeah, that would probably be. Oh, who? Wait, did you just show it?
Pedro. I showed Pedro Martinez, but no, I didn't show the answer to the question. But
he didn't lead the league in home runs. I know what I'm being.
No, nor did he give up the most home runs either. But
yeah. I don't know. I know that's probably a tricky question because American League didn't come anywhere close. Right? So it's probably like something like 42 home runs or something. I have no idea though.
It was 52.
It was 52. Okay, I was 10 off.
And he did it in his first season after signing the biggest baseball contract in the history of baseball at that point. And it was another confirmed steroid user, unfortunately, later on, Alex Rodriguez. So,
okay, that makes
we're
sense.
picking on a lot of those guys tonight, unfortunately. Yeah. But it's hard to tell the story of that season unless you kind of bring some of those guys up.
Definitely.
Speaking of like telling the story of that season, like Randy Johnson and Curt Schilling, they struck out over 600 people just between the two of them during that point. I think Randy Johnson had well into the high 300s, if I'm not mistaken, that season. Just amazing. The pitchers don't pitch enough innings to be able to even consider trying to do that anymore.
Yeah.
So baseball's really changed just in that short period of time.
Yeah, definitely. And it's funny because I think the strikeouts per 9 are maybe higher than they've ever been in recent baseball. It's just they're not nearly pitching as many innings, right?
Yeah, blowing their arms out.
Yeah.
Oh, here's a guy that's going to be mentioned this weekend. Fred McGriff got the Hall of Fame induction this weekend. So. Here's Big Poppy in with the Minnesota Twins. Which kind of makes me giggle.
Is that his
Another
first?
player you just don't mention. Remember
Is
him
that
with
his
the team?
the first card that says that has his last name is Ortiz?
No, they had cards of him, I think, even in '98, I think, where they had done that correctly. So, yeah. I think of some of the more interesting ones. You're kind of getting back to the whole steroid thing. The Balco investigation, like, also like came about just 2 years after this, which was the feds first started investigating them at the end of 2002, and then they found evidence to link 3 major baseball stars at that time to receiving and using steroids. And I think we remember Barry Bonds off being interviewed and under that one, as well as Jason Giambi, but obviously Gary Sheffield being the third of that 3 right there. Of that group, Bonds is the only one that still denies that he is innocent, despite admitting to receiving some of the stuff. But he's like, I didn't know it had steroids in those items, which is interesting.
It is interesting. Yeah, that his head went up 5 sizes and he didn't notice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's so weird. I don't know where you guys sit on the steroid debate, but not trying to pick on this guy, but Ivan Rodriguez was also named by Jose Canseco, and he was in the Mitchell report too. Is like a name that got mentioned because of Jose Canseco, but they never had anything linking him to it. So I think baseball treated him very differently when the Hall of Fame vote came around. But if you're just going on did he have a positive test, or did we have proof that he bought or received steroids? The answer is no for Barry Bonds.
right.
And some of these other players. So Sammy Sosa is never been tied to that, even though I think a lot of people had suspicion of it. So it's just such a weird standard that the baseball writers have.
David Ortiz had some association with it too, right? Early in his career, and he just I don't fully know what it was, but it seems like he did use steroids early in his career. Do you know the info on that?
I do,
Yeah.
actually. So a little Adrian Beltre with the Dodgers on there early in his career, so I kind of go through there. From what I recall, so in 2003 or 4, I can't remember what year it was, but Major League Baseball did testing of all of its players under their collective bargaining agreement. If there was enough of a high enough percentage of players that had tested positive under the collective bargaining agreement, they agreed to enforce more stringent testing policies. So, but the players knew the tests were happening, so that was kind of part of the controversy. So many of the players just did it. They were promised anonymity, that they would never be found out. Some teams refused to do it because they were very anti-steroids and wanted to have the number high enough so they would actually enforce the testing policy. In fact, the White Sox were one of those teams where the people refused to test in an effort to try and get the percentages high enough. And so that he was one of, going back to David Ortiz was one of the players that was reportedly tested positive, and somebody leaked his name because that stuff was never supposed to become public. So that was his link to steroids. And I think people kind of, I don't know, gave him give him a break because that stuff was.
I think he's the first steroid. I think he's the first one who's had his name slightly sullied by steroids. Who made it in clean right into the Hall of Fame. I think maybe because he's just such a likable guy and all that stuff with the Boston Marathon and him meaning so much to the city afterwards. I feel like just everyone actively gave him a pass. He doesn't deserve it, but it seems like nobody else has gotten that.
When you have a player such as A-Rod that was trying to blame everybody for his positive tests. Yeah, and I think Ortiz potentially was received very differently as a result of that. I mentioned Tony Gwynn earlier, but I was actually let me get to his card, and here you go. Here's the Tony Gwynn card. He does have a 2002 Topps Gold, but he wasn't an active player in 2002. So I thought was interesting because Ripken also retired in 2001, but he doesn't have a 2002 card either. I don't know why Gwyn did and Ripken didn't. I'm not sure why that kind of played out that way. I mentioned this earlier before we got on. Frank Thomas. There we go. There you go,
Cool.
Steve.
Yeah.
Is there any players you like really want to kind of try and find as we kind of continue to do this? And yes, Robbie, Mark Grace is one of them. So there's your Mark Grace. So with the Cubs, that one. I didn't get the Diamondbacks card. I think one Grace was enough for me.
So Mitchell, do you generally collect gold cards through the years since then?
I'm more vintage, but like if I'm going to get more modern cards, I do gravitate more towards the golds, by and large. What I liked about this set too is they still had the manager cards, so you can kind of get a lot of the guys that are probably future Hall of Fame managers or current Hall of Fame managers on there. So that's kind of cool. So from Torrey to Tony La Russa, Dusty, Terry Francona. Yeah.
Steve, do you have a lot of gold cards in your collection?
I do not. I'm mostly a flagship guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've gotten most of my gold cards from the COVID era when I was opening cards with my kids, and I was doing it, and Steve was watching. But I have a well, this is one that I actually picked up because I thought it looked really cool.
What you got?
So this is an Acuna. So this is
oh yeah,
my
his jersey's super dirty. I love it.
Yeah. Let's see. I have a bunch. Now these are all from. I opened a lot. One. All of.
I think we're losing you a little bit, Doug. Kind of getting stuck again. It's unfortunate because you're showing us some cards now.
I'm Andre,
so sorry about that.
From 2021, no problem. Here's Dylan Carlton.
Oh yeah.
Gold. And I think this is it's vintage. Steve just did a video on him, Will Smith.
Oh yeah.
The Fresh Prince.
Right? Yep. Yeah, I did do
So
one recently on him.
Yep. And let's see, is there anything else worth showing? I have a couple others. No, not actually. This one is a kind of a COVID card. It's got his mask on.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah. One of the other features of the 2001 set is they had a lot of subsets in there to mark the 50th anniversary of Topps. And one of the ones that I like is the golden anniversary, the golden moments, which like was a 50 years of Topps that kind of commemorate like significant moments that happened in baseball. So there's like a Jackie Robinson one. This group I have is like the Mazeroski home run to end the 1960 World Series, Reggie Jackson, feats in the 77 World Series, Ripken breaking Garrick's streak, which just got recently, and then obviously Hank Aaron setting the home run record, which obviously has been passed since then. So those are kind of interesting, I think, additions they added to the set, which they didn't do in 91, which was like also an anniversary set that I think was very underwhelming in kind of my gentle opinion of Topps at that point. All right, here's one I like to kind of joke about. So this is a league leader card where we got Barry Bonds on one side, Jason Giambi on another. It's a Balco card. So
yeah, that's it's the Joker card.
Mm-hmm. Right. And here's the other guy we're going to talk about this weekend, Scott Rowland, the other guy that's going in.
Nice.
Yeah. All right. Did run into my Barry Bonds card eventually. I guess I should have sorted these a little bit more to kind of get the guys probably want to talk about, but there's the Barry. I still like Barry Bonds, for all this stuff. Like for a period of time I was angry at these guys, but I got back to love them. Go ahead, Doug.
I just what did you say, Steve?
I gotta get off here.
Oh, okay. Right.
All right. Thanks for
All right,
having me,
man.
though.
All right, Steve, thanks for joining us. Yeah.
Yeah, later, guys.
Take care, man.
All right, bye.
Yeah, I think that it's just the reality of the time, and I feel like it needs to be factored in. And I've heard people say this before. It's like, how can you tell the story of baseball without Barry Bonds? You know, and if Cooperstown is supposed to represent the story of baseball, you got to have those people in there. There's you don't have to twist the story to make them sound better than they were. You tell it like it is, and if you need to have like an asterisk on these guys, these are the steroid era guys. These are the guys who are associated with steroids. Then have a little symbol that marks them. But I also have heard. I think this is have you seen the channel Foolish Baseball with Foolish Bailey? He's really into advanced analytics and stats, and he has said, and I kind of agree with his assessment, that when you're evaluating people's career, it's not like everybody who did steroids who would have had a Hall of Fame career on the stat sheet should get in, but the ones who reach a certain level where you could maybe take 15% off. It's like, if you take 15% off, are they still a Hall of Famer? And I feel like, it's not a perfect calculation, but some sort of mental approximation of how if the person's exceptional, and it's hard to tell the story of the time and the era without that person's name, then you should probably have them in the Hall of Great Players and just say that what they did and why you should not maybe put them on the same playing field as all the others, or know that they had some sort of an advantage that the other players had, so you can't compare their bats 1-to-1. But I feel like it just seems like it was something that was done in that era, and there's just an awful lot of players who are discounted, and there's probably a lot of players who just got lucky and never were caught and are getting in. So I feel like it's a slippery slope.
I think I agree with the majority of what you said. It's hard looking at the record books and seeing the names of Alex Rodriguez, Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Rafael Palmeiro.
Mm-hmm.
You're at the top of so many of these records, and having them completely excluded from the game. And Pete Rose is a different conversation, but I would like to see him put in before these guys, though, personally.
Me too. Me too. And he's not eligible for. He never was even eligible for a vote.
No, they never gave him an opportunity.
Yeah.
I have a couple of trivia questions still left if you want to take a stab at it, or anyone else out there. Yeah.
All right.
So I mentioned earlier, Ichiro was, we
can look
at the chat too. Yeah. All right, guys, or whoever's listening, not assuming it's just guys. So Ichiro, as I mentioned before, was the MVP on Rookie of the Year in 2001. That was the second time, and only the second time it's happened. Who was the other person to do it?
The other person, I'm sorry, say that one more time.
To be Rookie of the Year and MVP in the same year. Any guests out there in the Watcher land?
Could it have been not like Ken Griffey? No, I don't know.
He played for the Boston Red Sox. Center fielder. Later. He was on a team with Yaz, but Yaz was getting older at that point.
All right, I don't want to embarrass myself. I'm not going to guess anymore.
Yeah, no, it's Fred Lynn. Fred Lynn was
okay.
Yep. Hmm.
Cool.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting. And
Yeah, that is.
so,
That's very interesting.
so yeah, they're kind of getting near the end. I certainly can probably just maybe show just a couple more
Sure.
cold cards from other years as opposed to kind of just continuing to show 2001. I will do an updated video once I have all of them and I can kind of put them all on the table and things like that. So if people ever wanted to look at those, I'm more than happy to do so. Or if you're interested, just message me, obviously. But I don't have a 2002 in front of me, but I do have a 2003. Here's the Derek Jeter one, which is the first year they actually introduced the black parallel too in there. And they
Cool.
started numbering those 50. And then afterwards it was like 51, 52, 53, all the way up to where we're at now. Most of the ones I have are Jeter. There's 05. Here's the 05 design. All the same card stock, as you kind of see throughout the years. They changed it, I think, for the first time in 2015. I think is when they finally decided to do something different with the card stock. Here's 2008.
Cool.
2009. I'm a bit of a Jeter fan if you haven't been able to pick that on that. So. 2011. Which is
So
probably more known as a
how did you get to be
so.
a Jeter fan as primarily a White Sox fan?
He's just so good. And I like that Yankees team. I did root for them in the playoffs when they weren't like the White Sox weren't in the fold. They were a bunch of really likable guys, I felt. Kind of led by obviously the core of that team was obviously Jeter, Rivera, and others. So, oh, did I lose you, Doug? Oh, there you are.
I got a phone call while I got a phone call. James Elite Hunters.
Did you want to join the conversations?
So I'll call you back.
Here is 2012. There's Jeter on there too. So
that's cool.
But I have to go through all the years. But here's one of my like favorite ones, just because of like who's on there. And we only had him for like 3 months, but it was a fun 3 months when we had King Griffey on the White Sox. Made the playoffs, so hit a few home runs for us. He was like right at the end of his career at that point.
Mm-hmm. Who are some of your favorite White Sox players of recent past? I mean, there's probably some
recent
obvious
vintage.
Ones.
Yeah, Paul Konerko.
Yeah.
Paul Konerko, Mark Burley, Frank Thomas, and Jose Abreu would probably be the ones that kind of rise to the top of the list for me. Yeah, I mean, when I was like a kid going to the White Sox game, I don't think I really had a favorite White Sox player. Did like the White Sox, but it wasn't until like Frank Thomas came around when I really started kind of gravitating towards some of the players on the team at that point. So
I feel like they have some exciting players. It especially seemed that way like a couple years, like 2 years ago. It seemed like with maybe right after Jose Abreu winning the abbreviated season MVP award, it seemed like they were coming out with Luis Robert, Moncada, Jose Abreu, and Tim Anderson. That just it felt like a super exciting team. But I guess that sort of, I feel like Luis Robert seems like he's rising to it now.
Yeah, I think he's of the bunch. Seems to be the one that's actually probably gonna have a decent career. I mean, Abreu did. He just is like done.
Right, and I think he even started late. Right, he kind of peaked later in his career, and then he
had to come over from Cuba. Yeah, he had to like negotiate his leaving Cuba, so he started later in baseball. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, any like closing thoughts on like the 01 season or the 01 set, or just the Topps Gold's parallels?
No, I think that you're right to sort of make a point of these parallels, because there aren't a lot of it's sort of I mean, it kind of maybe started. It was like the pure version of a trend that has gone overboard, and I feel like there's something nice about the gold card having an actual like, as opposed to like the like new players having 1,000 rookie cards because of all the variations, and also like I heard something like one player had 14 tops one of ones, so it's like one of ones don't even mean what they used to. Or one-on-one rookies. So I think that the year, I think this is definitely your sweet spot, and I think that you covered it really well. It's less my sweet spot, but it's certainly an area an era and a card legacy that I have a strong appreciation for.
It was definitely the peak of my baseball interest, and obviously I'm still a baseball fan, but I had a lot of time to watch baseball, go to baseball games. I was still kind of moving into becoming an adult, at that point. So I was still in school. I decided I could continue school and things like that. So, and and I was all into the home run chases and all these accomplishments the players are doing. I didn't even think twice about steroids until like started coming forward, and we started learning more about it in the years that came thereafter. So yeah, for me, that's kind of the lasting legacy of 2001 is like it was the last real big height of the pre-steroid era scandal. And it concluded obviously with the greatest single season home run accomplishment we'll probably ever see. And it's disappointing, to kind of see that was done, not on the up and up, which was hard to watch. So at that point, just kind of seeing how his image got tarnished and how like the media has kind of taken him down in years since, and as well as some of the other steroid users that kind of got caught up thereafter. I have one concluding non-baseball question from 2001 to see if anybody can get this right before people jump off for the night. Which one of these three movies was the biggest grossing film of 2001? Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, the first Lord of the Rings movie, or Shrek? The first Shrek.
I'm going to guess the first Shrek.
Any other guesses in the chat there before people jump off?
And that's just kind of a random guess. I don't know why I went with that.
Shrek was the second most grossing film of that year.
So I was close.
It was actually the Harry Potter film was number one. Yeah, I think if they looked at the entirety of the gross of the Lord of the Rings movie, it might have been first, but it was done over 2 years because it was released at the end of the year. So it was kind of that funny thing that they did where they gave them credit for the following year, anything they earned after the 1st of January. But well, Doug, thank you very much, and thanks again to Steve, who was able to join us for a little while tonight. So,
well, thanks for having me, Mitchell. Sorry I delayed you a little bit, but thanks for your patience.
Yeah, no problem. So, and I hope to see you guys all again soon. And thanks again.
Yeah, awesome, man. Talk soon. Bye.
All right. Bye.